It's on. We're gonna have to edit this now, because you know we've been talking.
No, none of that's been recorded.
Oh, none of that's been recorded. Okay.
Yeah.
Say
Now,
when you.
it's now.
All right, Mr. Kirksey, please identify yourself for the purpose of the studios. That's a really good.
This is another.
What did you do? That is not a blank tick.
No, that's not.
My burden. All right, Henry J.
No, it's that. Okay.
We'll get ourselves together in a minute, Henry.
Yeah, okay.
Be patient with us. Be patient, you know.
Yeah, well, I don't
Okay.
know any other way.
You understand what I'm doing here?
Well,
I'm doing a civil rights history for this museum.
yeah, but
Well, we're collaborating.
Yeah,
Greg and I.
okay.
Greg is the new curator here, and I'm the research historian.
okay.
So I dig and find, get the information. I'm responsible, I guess, for compiling the information. And
Now-
he does the physical putting together of the
All right. What is
exhibits and the collections.
okay? What is the bottom line that the museum hopes will come out of what you're doing? That is, what kind of historic information is is your bottom line?
The bottom line is civil rights history
Yeah.
for this environment and the state of Mississippi.
All right. You know, there are civil rights and then there's civil rights.
Yes, of course.
And the worst part about the civil rights is
Yes.
that the civil rights people don't agree
On facts.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Oh, I understand that. Are we ready yet?
Yes,
Okay, say when.
it's recorded.
Okay. Who are you, Mr. Kirksey?
Henry J. Kirksey, that J is J-A-Y or just J.
And I'm the only one in the state that calls you Henry J.
Yeah.
That's
I
right.
don't know why in the hell you do it. but
Well,
you do it.
that's just habit, Henry.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
all that is. All right, you are Henry, and where were you born here in Mississippi, sir?
In the rural, in Tupelo, in Lee County, Mississippi. And generally that meant, if you really wanted to know what Lee County is, you say Tupelo.
Yes, sir.
Tupelo is the county seat, and the larger population of the county is centered in Tupelo.
Yes.
It has a sizable black population.
Under 20%?
For black,
Yeah, under 20%.
I think Tupelo would be either at or over 20%.
Either at-
Because, yeah, because of Tupelo.
Because of Tupelo.
Tupelo has a real sizable black population. The education of blacks in Lee County was in Tupelo, in northeast Mississippi.
Okay, tell us about your education in Lee County, sir.
Well, versus the world is too much, but my education, and that's, I guess people think I know a hell of a lot more than I really know, but I was born out in the rural, in a log cabin.
Mm-hmm.
And in that log cabin, I had several rooms and all kinds of stuff in it. My grandmother lived there. And there was several sections to this, and you wonder why that is so. There were several sections to this house. There was a great big log cabin room here. And then over here was another log cabin room, same size. But it had been there longer than the first room, and it was right kind of in shambles and rotting down. Between those two rooms was a hallway. And then on building, using the second log cabin, on the north end of the log cabin was a room with board running straight up and down, board That's the way they built the houses. Then on the other side, on the south end of the log cabin, second log cabin, was another room, and that was the dining room. And beyond the dining room was the kitchen. So it was a great big thing, and you wonder back in that day, how did this particular family of blacks come to have a house of that magnitude? Because when it was, the origin of the house made it significant thing for blacks to have. The problem is that by the time I came along, it had been there a long time, and a part of it was rotting down. Now,
How would you date it? When do you think it was built?
I have it in my record, but I
Okay,
can't.
mid-19th century, 1850?
It would be in the 1800s,
Yeah,
that's the
1800s.
dead shoe. The, what is important about it is that race is the most important thing in terms of trying to explain why it was what it is. My grandmother had this room that was closest to the room. Aunt Millie, they called her. Everybody called her Aunt Millie. Now, it's the history of Aunt Millie that is the history that I'm trying to make. And I don't want to just, I want it to be a family kind of thing, but I can't keep it as a family kind of thing because it was more than that. Aunt Millie was born in a whole house in either on the Mississippi side, on the Tennessee side, born in a whole house. Now, to say that, you have to understand that somewhere along in history, having enough slaves to do the kind of production really was becoming too much of a job for the slave owners. So what the slave owners did, instead of paying to get to round up enough men and women in Africa, and then ship them across the ocean to America, that got to be too damn expensive.
Exactly.
So what they did was to organize a production for slaves here in America. And the production was an organized and very well business organized whorehouses. Now, the whorehouses were based on black African women and white men. And that's why we became a colored people.
I hear that.
We became a colored people because a part of most, not all of the children born in out of those whorehouses were parented by Europeans plus Africa. But most of them, during a certain period of time, most of them were parented by European native, not native, but European origin whites. And the other side was by African origin blacks, but not born in Africa, because we had, the slavery was so old that there's a lot of slave production within. So you can't say that all of the slaves were the product of white males and black females. Now, what is important, though, is that you recognize that the black population, that as we know it, was primarily, and is primarily, a product of European plus Africans. So we have a part of both. Now, to get back to my grandmother, I was too young my grandmother would always let me come into her room, and she would say, everybody called me Mike for whatever damn reason.
Mike.
All right, Mike, lay down on the floor over there. And I would lay on the floor and just look at my grandmother, and I was just wondering, why in the hell did my grandmother look just like the old white women up a half mile up the road? Couldn't figure that out. It saved my life. My sister, 8 years older, took care of my grandmother. And she would...
Your sister?
Yeah, my older sister.
That's not the one I knew.
No.
Okay.
No. Wait a minute. Depends on... If you...
What's her name?
Freddie.
Yeah.
Freddie was the one you knew then.
Yeah,
She was very closely connected with the funeral business here and every damn other place where there's a big funeral home in Mississippi. Well, Freddie took care of my grandmother. And my grandmother would wait for Freddie to come in and do whatever it was that she wanted done. And she'd have me land on the floor over there. And I would listen, but I just could not understand what the hell they were really, at the bottom line, or what the hell they were talking about. So that was, at that point in time, I was just beginning to attend school. Later on, as I got into school, let me tell you about my grandmother. Maybe that sort of explains a lot about why we are colored people. My grandmother had 15 children. The slave owner there in Lee County bought her from a whorehouse in Memphis. Either right on the county line, the state line. My grandmother was bought then by this slave owner in Lee County. And the slave owner in Lee County already had a son who was a slave. He owned a slave who was his son. And when he bought this slave from Memphis, he mated that slave, my Aunt Millie, with his already black son. Now the interesting thing is, and I'm putting it in because I want you, some people don't want me to even mention this, but the fact of the matter is that that relationship was there, and ain't a damn thing that we can do about it to change us, to make us what we want us to say we're African Americans.
Right.
We're just as much African European as we are.
That's for sure.
Yeah, we're African European.
Ain't no disputing that.
Okay. Well, when the slave that was bought from Memphis became, sort of growing up age, this slave owner had his slave son mated with my grandmother from Memphis. Now, then my grandmother began to produce all of these children. And her first child was Aunt Tenny, who had grown, when I knew her, she was grown up and had children of her own, a lot of children. Aunt Tenny provided a place for my brothers and sisters to go to Tupelo and attend school in Tupelo instead of the rural school. And that I got to know Aunt Tenny very well. And then there was Aunt Annie, there was 3 other females that were children of my grandmother. In addition to that, most of the males and that my grandmother was the mother of, spread out all over the place. Memphis and Meridian, every place in St. Louis, so they were all over the place. Now, what I guess I'm trying to get down to is, after a time, we outgrew the rural school. which went to maybe 7th or 8th grade or less. And for all of us in the family to be in the same school at the same time, we then, my father got him, he arranged with his sister in Tupelo, and living in Tupelo, for us to stay there for the school days and then come back.
With your aunt?
Yeah.
In Tupelo?
In Tupelo, ain't tenant. And then come back. So it was done after that level of education. I received that much education. I began to wonder again about Grandma Millie. And so I began to ask, I couldn't remember a damn thing that my sister and my grandma were discussing. It didn't have any real meaning to me except that they were calling names of people that I knew.
Yeah.
Well,
was there a name of the community where she lived? Your grandmama out from Tupelo, usually there are a lot of community names. Was there a particular community name?
There were a number of community names, like we were near the Bissell community.
B-I-S-S-O-N?
B-I-S-S-E-L, Bissell.
Oh, Bissell.
Yeah, community. We were near walking distance of Verona, Mississippi.
Oh,
okay, we were close enough to know most of the people in Shannon, Mississippi.
Shannon, I know what it was.
Yeah. And so, some of those names they're difficult to call. But what it amounts to is that almost all the blacks knew of all the other blacks.
Right.
You know. And on Saturdays and Sundays, especially Sundays, they would come together in the rural churches and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But let's go back to...
Were you out of the Baptist tradition or AME?
Methodist. That's kind of...
AME or United Methodist?
United Methodist. I
Really?
guess it's united. I don't think it's very united, but they say it's united.
That's beside the point. Methodist, okay. Yeah, there wasn't United Methodist in those days. It was just Methodist.
Yeah, it's just Methodist,
Yeah.
and that's what it was for me.
Well, when we were living with Aunt Kenny for school purposes in Tupelo, that was when I began to understand the complexity of the black life versus the white life, and where there was kinship and not kinship. The white folks would come to visit Aunt Millie, and the black folks very seldom ever came to visit Aunt Millie. The white folks always came, and they called her Aunt Millie. Aunt Millie. Aunt Millie's son, they would crowd in that little room, and I would be over there. I'd have to get over in the corner there and sit and watch. And I listened to what they were talking about. But after I started the school in Tupelo, I was at a level to really sort of comprehend what had transpired in my present, but I didn't understand. So I began to really question my sister, and my sister would talk to anybody, including me, about whatever your subject was, because she knew most of everything. I always thought my sister was the...
Is that Freddie?
That's still Freddie.
That's Freddie.
Yeah, it's Freddie. So that you understand, I'm tying Freddie in. My sister Freddie became the secretary of the owner of the funeral home in Tupelo. And she really just took care of it. But when that big tornado came through Tupelo, the wife of the funeral owner was killed.
Now that was the white funeral home?
No, this is black.
Black funeral home.
A.W. Porter funeral home.
A.W. Porter.
J.W. Porter.
J.W. Porter.
And what happened was, and this by bringing this in now, it kind of straightens out the relationship. J.W. Porter had a daughter was born almost in that tornado, and but the mother was killed.
And my sister just took that child. And sooner, well, later on, she was, you know, authorized as the mother of the child. Valerie Porter.
Valerie.
Yeah, Valerie Porter. Now, before J.W. Porter died, he ceded the funeral home over to my sister, put it in her name, because his daughter was much too young, you know, to do anything. So my sister reared that girl and became the owner of the J.W. Porter Funeral Home, which became Freddie Kirksey Funeral Home, the Kirksey Funeral Home in Tupelo. Now, what happened when we go back to school in Tupelo now, Aunt Tenny, we living with Aunt Tenny. I sat down one day, I said, Freddie, look, I heard you and Grandma talk about all of these children that she had, 15 children and all of that, and my sister was a person who liked to be you know, a source of information. She was really good at that. You asked any question if she had any experience, she'd tell you. So she said, Mike, sit down.
Sit down.
Sit down, Mike. Let me tell you about your grandmama. And she went on to tell all that grandmama told her about the operation of those funerals, about those whole houses in
Memphis.
and whole houses, not only in Memphis, she knew all about the whole houses in Mississippi.
No.
So she told my sister about the whole thing, and then my sister told me about it, so I could remember enough of that coming out of school in Tupelo. And not only that, but somehow they had lots of pictures of her children and where they went and what they looked like and all of that. So I had a very good education into the whole housing business. Yeah, that's right. I'm a product of the whole housing business like you are.
Yes, sir. I can't say a word.
Yeah, you're a product of the whole housing business, because when we came along, this was way beyond the time that they would go to Africa and round up some people and bring them, ship them
They
over.
manufactured them right here.
That's right.
Manufactured.
They manufactured us right here.
Yeah.
You know, I talked about this out of Tupelo, and I don't think those students appreciated how.
No, they didn't.
I think that they really had a bad opinion of me talking about they were byproduct of poor housing.
They were ashamed.
Yeah, that's right. That's why we go like, we talk about black history and all of that. The one person who had a good concept of what went on and how it came out was John Hope Franklin. John Hope Franklin, but the problem with John Hope Franklin is he will tell you about that period, and as, what the hell did he call it? Folkways and mores. Well, most of us don't have enough education to understand folkways and mores.
Exactly.
That's right. We don't really have enough education. And that doggone John Hope Franklin put it in. I went to his home, I know, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and John Hope was teaching at North Carolina, what is North Carolina Central. When I was there, it was called North Carolina College. And he was also a part-time professor at Duke University, which was right across the street. Yeah. Then when he got when people began to understand his portrayal of slavery, in terms of folkways and mores, he got to what is a big university in Washington D.C. My daughter's a graduate.
What, Howard?
Huh?
Howard?
Not Howard, not Black.
Not Black.
The two big universities there.
See, American University is one.
No, that's not one of them. the two biggest ones.
In D.C.?
Yeah, is it in D.C. or New York? Clinton is a graduate of what?
Clinton went to...
Clinton and my daughter were classmates.
Did he go to Harvard?
Harvard?
Harvard is,
Harvard.
see, Harvard is, John Hope Franklin taught at Harvard.
Okay.
When he left North Carolina Central,
Yes.
he was hired at Harvard. My son-in-law is a Harvard graduate. My daughter is a graduate of the Clinton School. Okay. I guess what I'm trying to get down to is where I come in. I went through all of this kind of collection of information about history, but I just didn't prepare myself to come together with some kind of organization so I could put all this stuff together.
Okay. Describe very briefly the school in Tupelo that you attended, one-room school, black teacher, any of the mission teachers from,
Yeah.
describe that.
Well, let's start where I started. I started at White Hill.
Okay, White Hill School.
White Hill School was one room, and we had black children from all around in northern part of Lee County.
Now, was that Tupelo?
As in,
White.
in the Tupelo and what is,
In the rural?
you can't talk, yeah, it's in the rural.
Okay. In the
But you can't talk about that area without saying Tupelo somewhere, because
That's
Tupelo
okay.
dominated, politically and every other meeting.
And that was a one-room school?
Yes, right, that's one room school.
And how far up did it go?
It went up to the 8th grade.
Eighth grade.
When my brother, who was oldest, when he graduated, got beyond 8th grade at White Hill, we all had to, and my father insisted that we stay together. So then we were transferred from White Hill to Verona School.
Verona School.
And my brother, older brother, Charles went to the 8th grade in Verona. And that was the end of the Verona School. Went to the 8th grade. That was when we transferred to Tupelo, because we had to all be together. We transferred to Tupelo. It was too damn far from where we lived to walk to Tupelo, considering the time. We got to...
That was a high school now?
Huh?
That was a high school in Tupelo?
My brother is in high school in Tupelo.
Okay, what's the name of that? Do you remember?
Hell, I'll never forget that.
It was the
Lee County Training School for Negroes.
Lee County.
Lee County
I could have
Training.
guessed that.
Lee County Training School for Negroes in Tupelo. When I started the school there, and I want to add one note. Because my brother was the star of everything, my older brother. If you were talking about baseball, he was the star.
What's his name?
Charles.
Charles Kirksey.
Charles Kirksey. Charles Kirksey was not only a hell of an athlete, he was the top student in his class.
He was the scholar.
Yeah, that's right. He was a scholar. Charles, I wanted to be like Charles. That was he was he was everything that I wanted to be. But I never could emulate Charles in any kind of way.
Oh.
I was just misfit in every way that I could think of. I was an absolute misfit. Out on the farm, you had to come out. Wait a minute, Mike. Here, look, do this. And then if we were playing, and I ran into that especially at Verona, there were a lot more children attending Verona and a lot of guys. And one of the damn things about my early life is that I don't give a damn who it was. It looked like they could always whip the shit out of me. I don't care. Looked like this, I got whipped everything. Everybody wanted to whip me, and children are like that.
They would come in and I would watch my brother wherever he moved to.
That gives you a hell of an inferiority complex.
It was inferior as hell. Now, but inferiority can sometimes be overcome.
Sure.
One day, the principal of Tupelo, the black school there,
Drain school.
he had three sons. The oldest son was Forrest, then the Lemon, and I've forgotten the name of the youngest son. But to show you, and there were students in Tupelo that I knew I could whip this guy. I just knew that. But when we get into a fight, he'd always beat the hell out of me. I couldn't figure that out to save my life. One day, what I would do in the recess, these recess periods, you know, I would go way off to myself, close to the highway, so if they came after me, I would have some kind of defense. I would run and get the hell out of the way, because I knew you were going to beat me up. One day I'm up there close to the highway, and here comes Lemon Strange, the son of, he was attending Tennessee State. Here comes Lemon Strange with football on his arm. He was about 6'11". He was a big dude, and he's coming down the floor with this damn football on his arm. Somebody tackle me! Somebody tackle me! And I'm sitting up there with my mouth wide open, watching, looking at what was happening. Everybody running the hell out of the way. And before I knew it, hell, he was right up on me. He ran right over me, knocked the hell out of me down. But guess what? Everybody came, all the kids came out. God damn, that Henry Kirksey is one hell of a tackler. They gave me credit for tackling Lemon Strange.
You're an instant hero.
I am boy, I couldn't live with myself. I was so great, I couldn't live with myself. But you know something? All of the other guys started figuring that I was a real tough dude.
Respect.
They gave me a hell of a lot of respect.
Absolutely.
So, I'm going to jump way away from that. I'm going to that tornado in Tupelo.
You remember what year that tornado was in?
Not specifically, but
It was before the Second World War?
Oh, hell yeah. Way before the Second World War. That was the damnedest tornado in Mississippi at that time. Boy, it was a son of a gun. Anyway, that...
In the 1930s, would you say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, let me see, I can date it. In about right after that encounter with Lemon Strange, I got to be somebody. Yeah. You know, up until the guy from Chicago talking about, I am somebody. You know, up until that time, I was nobody. I was really nobody, nowhere.
Status.
That was my status. But it's kind of like overnight, I became somebody. I even had some girls looking at me.
How about that?
Right.
You were really something.
I was really something. Well, the tornado came.
Yes.
And when the tornado came, there was a classmate of mine, damn, I can't think his name now. But let me digress a bit and go back to my father. My father was the damnedest farmer in the world. I mean, he was real. But not only that, he was one hell of a carpenter, one hell of a bricklayer. You name it, Charlie Kirksey could do it. Charlie Kirksey could do it, and everybody realized it. Well, when the big tornado came, my father was out building houses and doing all kinds of things. And he was rebuilding the house for my sister, who was really the second big member of the family. She was the second boss in the family. Her house was torn up, and she was living in Tupelo at the time. Her house was torn up, so my father was up there building, and he had sat me down. He said, all right, Mike, you're going to
I'm going to teach you carpentry and bricklaying.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really happy about that.
Yeah.
Oh, brother. But then one of the guys of my schoolmate there, he was living in he had moved to St. Louis. He came back down to help his parents to do something about that property. And he came, he said, "Hey, man, I got a return ticket to St. Louis. I'll sell it to you for $1 if you want to go." I said, "Hell, give me the ticket." I bought the ticket. And
How old were you?
21.
21.
21 years old. And that's really important because I am now too damn old for public school. Okay.
So you left for St. Louis?
I bought that ticket and walked 5.5 miles out to where we lived in the road and got all my things together. And when I came back and I was coming back where my father was on top of the house looking out, "Boy, where the hell have you been?" I said, "I've been out to get all my stuff. I'm on my way to St. Louis." "Well, I'll be goddamn." That's what he said. "Okay, what he said. "Okay, good luck." And so that's all he did. He went on back to building on that house. He went back to work. And I had gone to St. Louis on a freight train before, so I knew a little about, where it was and all. Anyway, I bought that ticket and went on. And now, my brother had finished Fisk, and he was working in St. Louis, my older brother. My older brother, I wasn't there very long before my brother said, "Boy, you too damn ignorant to make it up here." That is precisely what he said. "You too damn ignorant to make it up here." Well, the biggest family in terms of ownership in Jackson, Mississippi was what? What was the big family? You don't know well. At any rate.
For my time.
Man, they were, yeah. God dang it. Any rate, that family was, you know where the federal building is there on Ferry Street?
Yeah.
He owned all of that damn place. Damn near all of Ferry Street. Not Reddick's. At any rate, the son of...
Redmond?
Redmond.
Redmond. Yes.
Redmond had a son who was a graduate of, what the hell? Redmond's son was a graduate of either Harvard or the other school there. And he had a business in St. Louis, and my brother got to know him, and they were real good friends. So I'm 21 years old, too damn old for public school, but Redmond was a lawyer. And my brother said, "Look, man," said, "I got to have get my brother in school with him." So Redmond had my age put back to 17.
No, Lord.
Sure did. Not only was I then eligible to go to public school, but I was eligible for football and all of the other kind of stuff. And
Were you shaving that?
I was it, man. I was captain of the football team, the top dude in my classes and all of that. I was really somebody. Well, that was my life in St. Louis, and then my brother got me a job, and I really began to be. But most importantly, I became a star football player. Captain of the team. Nobody knew that I was damn near as old as the coach. Any rate, by virtue of being that old and then sort of being able to take over, but I guess I didn't look that old. But what I came out of that was that
I was really the top student because I knew something about that time about responsibility. And I had to, in addition to going to school, I had to work to help my brother. My brother was really taking care of my aunt. We were living with my aunt.
What was the difference in age between you and your brother?
Yeah, we'll do it this way. It was two females between me and my older brother.
Mm-hmm.
And that usually the separation was about 2.5 years or 3 years.
So 6 or 7 years.
Yeah,
you were done?
yeah.
Okay.
Now, Charles was, when I got so damn famous up there as a football player, it was about the time that they created a teaching college in St. Louis.
For black?
Yeah, for blacks. Teaching college for blacks. And when I graduated from Vashon High School,
In St. Louis?
in St. Louis,
Vashon.
yeah, Vashon, V-A-S-H-O-N, Vashon High School. Incidentally, there is a well-known member of the Congress in Los Angeles who is one of the best-known black females or males in the Congress, who is also a graduate much later of Vashon High School. Yeah, okay. What, this is kind of a story I shouldn't even start telling today.
Go on,
It's
don't
long.
worry.
Look,
This is just the first section. That's
probably the last one.
Look, the better not say.
Well, I was as bashful a person as far as women, females is concerned. I was as bashful as a person could be. And I had to have somebody to kind of bring me together. So when I graduated with Sean, here was this new college for training black teachers. And I didn't have any money, so this thing was sort of the people that I moved away from my grandmother, my aunt, and I was living with a friend of my aunt whose husband was a teacher at this
The teacher's college?
Yeah, the teacher's college.
In St. Louis?
In St. Louis. So I was really and they took me in because I was also a friend of their, longtime associate. So when my longtime associate, they took a job at the college in Durham, the female college in Durham, North Carolina.
In North Carolina?
Yeah. It's one of the best known black colleges. It's a female college. At any rate, she was...
Bennett was in...
Bennett!
No, that wasn't in Durham.
Huh?
Bennett was in Greensboro.
No, Bennett was right there in Durham. Bennett College.
Andy, I was stationed
Huh?
in there.
Huh?
I was stationed there.
Okay, well,
I
I'll
used to
station
go visit the girls at Bennett now.
Bennett was right there you're right. It was so, the association with Bennett, Greensboro and Durham,
Yeah.
so damn close that you figured on the, but,
Because A&T at Bennett.
right,
in Greensboro.
yeah, okay. But in Durham, you considered all those folks to be in the same damn place.
Yes.
And that's because that was the closest, that was Durham, North Carolina, Mutual Life Insurance Company, the banks and all of that. That was a close-knit black community.
Right.
That was some kind of experience. I forgot where in the hell I was now, but at any rate, I was there in Durham with all of this, and where in the hell was I? Any rate.
How'd you get from St. Louis to back to North Carolina?
Well, I got a scholarship, a football scholarship.
Oh, from St. Louis?
From St. Louis.
To North Carolina Central?
North Carolina Central.
Oh, okay.
The people I was living with in St. Louis, Coach Berghardt in North Carolina Central was their nephew.
Okay.
So when he came through to St. Louis to visit his relative, he said, "You Henry Kirksey?"
No.
I said, "Yeah." "What in the hell? Why do you go to school?" I said, "Well, I've graduated from Sean. Get your damn stuff together. You going with me."
Oh, Lord.
He took me to North Carolina. And I became a student at North Carolina Central and a star football player. Yeah. That was the making of things, but
North Carolina College.
yeah, that was North Carolina College then. It's North Carolina Central now. Now, what evolved from that was that Coach Burghardt and I became really pretty close friends because of the interrelationship with family. At any rate, the game that got me out of college was what is that big game that's on the national level? It was created by blacks, but the whites took it over as one of the big
Classic.
yeah, one of the big classics in the South.
Right.
Well, we were playing in that game, which was then black, and I played defense end. And
What you weigh?
huh?
How much did you weigh?
About 165.
Lord have mercy.
165. Well, at that period, I really was up to about 170, but 165.
You were big for those days.
Yeah.
I played
that's
in, I
right.
weighed 140.
Yeah, well, it is now this big game, and it's down in Atlanta.
Atlanta, Peach Bowl.
Peach Bowl, that's what it was, the Peach Bowl.
Right.
Well, I always prided myself with being a defensive end. Nobody's coming around my damn end, no matter how big or fast it was.
I know what happened. I know what happened.
Look, no. What happened was I didn't even get in the game. We lost the damn game 7-6.
And you didn't even get
And
in.
I didn't get in the game because my roommate who lived in Mamaroneck, New York, was a drop kick expert.
Oh, Lord.
Boy, he could kick that damn ball and it was straight through. And now we scored first, 6 points. But when this guy kicked his damn ball, the wind was blowing really hard, so the ball went straight through, right through the upright. Except that it didn't quite get to the uprights. It went all the way back behind and fell way off the field behind us.
Hold it. Lord have mercy. Who were you playing in? Who were you?
Morris Brown.
Oh, Morris Brown.
We were playing Morris Brown.
Okay, in Atlanta.
Yeah, in Atlanta. Okay, so now I knew I was going to get in that damn game because I could make damn sure that we could get that one extra point. But it didn't happen. Coach Burghardt didn't even call me. I was sitting there on that bench all through that. So I was so mad.
Yeah, I know you were.
I was really mad.
You remember what year that was?
Huh?
You remember what year that was?
In a minute, it'll probably come out. What happened, I was really, on the way back on the train, going back to Durham, the guys were raising hell, talking about all kinds of things, and I'm sitting there, I'm sick as hell because I didn't get in the game. When I got back to the NC, I went straight to my room and wrote a letter to the draft board in St. Louis.
No, you didn't do that.
Sure did.
Lord have mercy.
I said, I want to be
I want to go.
I want to be there. I want to get in on New Year's Day.
Oh, my goodness.
When I went home to St. Louis
Yeah.
and went to Jefferson Barracks on New Year's Day, guy was the only person I saw was one person on that. What in the hell are you doing out here? I said, well, I'm going to get sworn in today. He said, you must be out of your damn mind.
Yeah.
Say, ain't nobody out here.
Anybody?
You're the only one. You get your ass out of here. He said, you get the hell out of here.
The war had not started. The war hadn't started.
Hell yeah, the war was on.
Well, actually, what year was it?
Well, let me come back,
Okay.
because I have to go back to the football game.
Okay, back to the
And on the way back to St. Louis,
Yeah.
that's when the dean got off the train, and he came back on the train and held that newspaper.
War
One-
declared.
Japs attacked
Jack
Pearl
Pearl
Harbor.
Harbor.
3
December
words.
7th,
3 words.
1941.
Japs attacked Pearl Harbor. That's why I went down to the damn beach to get sworn in.
So you went in 42.
That's
Because
it.
Pearl Harbor was in December of 41.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, by the
When
time you
I
got
went-
back,
Yeah, see, I got, look, the guy almost kicked my ass. He said, you get the hell out of here. Ain't nobody sworn in today. So I went back, but the next day, January 2nd, I was right there.
January 2nd.
I was sworn in on
1942.
January 2nd. And throughout my military career, that was the worst thing that I could tell any other person, any other black, that I voluntarily entered the military.
Turn it off a minute. Oh, you want to keep talking? I gotta go to bed.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, take 5.
Take 5, he said. Well, I tell you, life is a hell of a thing. And I got the worst end of it, it seems. 'Cause I didn't tell a whole deal about my. Give me a finger. Just one finger. Let me see.
Oh, wow.
That is literally an axe dent.
Really?
Yeah, I guess I was about 7, 8 years old. And my older brother was at that cutting wood. He was yakking him. And then I had a little old hatchet, and I was picking on him over here. He said, get out of the way, boy. Let me show you how to do that. And he's got this damn axe. It's a double blade axe. And instead of getting out of the way, I got right behind him. And when he came over his shoulder with that axe, it hit me right in the head. Now, when they finally got a doctor out there, we will tell on about this. When they finally got a doctor out there, the doctor looked at me and he said, well, I'll be goddamn. He said, it's a damn good thing that old Mike, they said, old Mike didn't have a brain, because if he had that brain, hell, he'd be dead. Damn thing axe went down and through my skull. He said if old Mike had a brain, he would be dead.
Who are you talking about? Who was he talking about?
Talking about me. Give me your finger.
How old were you when you went in?
Huh?
How old were you when you went in?
Well, I must have been about 25.
Try to knock your brains out.
Yeah.
Right?
Huh?
How old were you when you went in? 25,
Yeah,
26?
about 25, 26, somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere there. Okay.
But I was telling him about, give me your finger. And,
I just went in there.
huh?
I felt it.
Okay.
You got a piece of metal in there?
Well, look, when I doing my, growing up,
Okay.
my older brother had this double blade axe, and he was whacking
Oh,
and
no.
cutting, and I had this little hatchet, so I back it. I'm about 6 years old. Back at the back of my brother said, get the hell out of the way, Mike. He said, let me show you how to do it.
Right.
So I got out of the way by walking right behind him.
No. Oh, Lord.
When that double blade axe came over, it caught me right in the head.
Oh,
Boom, I thought my brother was gonna die.
I guess.
I get it. I thought he was gonna die.
Was that Brother Charles?
That was Brother Charles.
Oh, Lord.
And now they had to go get the doctor. Dr. Feemster, white doctor, came out there in his buggy and you know, and they had me in the house. Dr. Feemster said, well, one good thing that about Mike, he doesn't have a brain, because if he had a brain, he'd be dead. I'll never forget that. He said, oh, Mike had a brain, he'd be dead, but he doesn't have one.
Oh, Lord.
That's my life.
Okay. All right. Okay, now you went in where did you go in at?
Jefferson Barracks in
Jefferson
St.
Barracks in Missouri?
Louis. In St. Louis.
Okay, on January 2nd,
Yes.
1942.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you took basic at Jefferson Barracks?
Yeah, well, not really. I was only inducted at, and then they sent, I've forgotten when it's,
Where they send you?
sent to Oklahoma.
Fort Sill?
Fort Sill.
Oh, no.
Fort Sill.
Been there.
Fort Sill, yeah. Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
And things began to, what got started was that shortly after I got in, there was this sort of trying to get blacks in the commission.
Okay.
And it was then that I was sent to Fort Sill, Oklahoma,
To officers training school?
yeah, officer training.
OCS.
Yeah. I did real well in OCS, but I was the only black in my class. Yes.
So you caught hell.
I really,
I know
in
you caught
terms,
hell.
I was like in a world of my own. No, not a damn thing. Worse than that.
Yeah. They ostracized
Worse than that.
you. Yeah.
My classmate was a Kirksey.
No.
She was white as hell.
A white Kirksey.
White Kirksey.
Ain't that something?
And that used to, he was the
He
guy.
hated that.
He was from Georgia.
Oh, Lord.
And he would get up every morning. He would get up, gentlemen of the South,
Oh, gee.
stand up.
Oh, no.
Hell, all the guys would jump out of bed and stand up. I'm laying over there, you know.
They
But
were
that-
talking you know what.
That was a hell
He
of a...
said gentlemen, so he wasn't talking to you.
That's right. But, and it also, by being in a barrack where it was all white, I really was alone, you know, completely alone. And the other guys were, there were several blacks who were really top students in class, and I was catching hell, because I didn't know a damn thing. Shit. I was really catching hell. But somehow, I made it through OCS. And then they kept me and several other blacks there at Fort Sill. And I became, shortly after, being in one of the truck outfits.
You were commissioned second lieutenant.
Second lieutenant in the truck outfit. And the thing was that it was kind of funny because it was all black, obviously, for the enlisted personnel. And then there was no black officers.
Was that a transportation company?
Yeah, transportation, except for those who graduated there at my class level at Fort Sill. We were the only black officers. Now, I'm going to have to tell you this because it's really kind of amusing and it's indicative of the level of things. We got a recruit in, and everybody was always picking on him, and there's something about him about he would not do any damn thing that anybody else was doing right. If it was the wrong way to do it,
He figured it out.
he would figure it out and do it. So the commanding officer of that particular battery was a first lieutenant, white. And one day, everybody, I forget the name of this guy, one day he would get in trouble no matter if there was no trouble to get into. He would find a way to get into it. So the commanding officer was going to, reprimand him or do something for him. He had him in